Make sure there's no spinach between your teeth when you be interviewed.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, call that.
Got it.
Mwah.
Bill is 28 years old. He's a very gregarious. He does have some language issues, but he's really interested in communicating with people.
Well, I would like you to meet my son, Christopher Macey. He is now 32 years old. And if you wouldn't know by looking at him probably, but he does have autism. And he does wear hearing aids, so he is hearing impaired as well. And although he has been able to read and spell anything since he was 8 years old, he is a little bit difficult to understand in conversation due to a palatal defect.
We moved to Saline from Belleville when Bill was 11 years old. So his first grade was the 5th grade at Heritage School.
Well, Christopher was actually born in Midland, Michigan, and attended school there as a preschooler and also through kindergarten. And he started 1st grade there, but only for a few weeks. Because I had been researching, I was not very happy with the programming that they provided for him, even as a young student of age 5. And so I had been kind of networking throughout the state, looking for places that might have a good educational program. And we happened to find Saline.
So when Bill was about 14, I started thinking about, his life, and he's a fairly healthy individual, and he only has one brother named Mike, and so we didn't have a lot of other family members who we could rely on to, if one of us, if we should become incapacitated or, die, that Bill's life, I didn't want it to be dependent on Mike to set everything up for Bill.
And I think, you start thinking about that, and yes, he has a brother. So I know that if anything happened, his brother would take care of him, and I know that. But I think Chris and Bill and different ones and their friends and things, they really want to have their own life. I think they don't want to feel like they have to live with somebody else all the time.
My Uncle Bruce, who just passed away, he was 80 years old, it was probably somewhere around a 12 to 14-year-old his entire life in terms of his intellectual development. He was a wonderful human being, a great guy, but my grandparents got older and couldn't take care of him anymore, and there weren't any family members that had the ability to care for him, so he ended up having to go to Jackson to live in a home with other people like himself.
At one point I thought this is never going to happen, and then we met Bill Godfrey through one of our members.
So when we first met up with Bill Godfrey, it was through a friend of mine, Linda Klenzar. But she said, he might be interested in this.
About 3 years ago, we got a phone call from a woman who lived in Saline and had a daughter who was developmentally disabled. And she asked if we would consider building housing for her daughter and other adults with disabilities in Saline. And so we started meeting with some families like the Maceys and the Rabies and the Renchlers and other families in Saline about the possibility of building an entire neighborhood.
The more Patty and I talked about it, we were really fortunate in that we networked with a number of people and ended up meeting with this gentleman who was in charge of this Three Oaks building company. Chris knew more about Bill than I did because of the conversations they were having, but he just seemed so positive and so willing to get on board with us and try something. He played tennis for U of M, which made Chris very excited to find out that history of Bill Godfrey.
I do. I do.
And went to Pioneer High School and played tennis as well.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
When Bill Godfrey started coming to our meetings, we started working on designing a condo building.
This is the building that was designed by the Rabies and the Maceys and some other families.
The things that the group decided were important, for security was to have, just one entrance and exit.
We intentionally put 2 condominium units on either side of a common hallway, and we locked the door at the end of the hallway is just for emergency exit only, because one of the biggest concerns for these families is that their loved ones are secure at night. So, but it will also have a overnight caregiver who can sit and look down that hallway and make sure that everything's okay with, and that the boys haven't stepped out at night to go to the speedway and get a big gulp, for example, or something like that.
And they also will have safety features so that there might be an alarm that would go off if they were to open a door to leave, so that they cannot leave without someone knowing that. And there will be other safety features where you can't enter the building without either a code or someone letting you in that knows you.
So in all of our homes, whether it's a condominium, townhome, or single family, we will offer a customization feature where we create accessibility for somebody in a wheelchair, for example, who needs the kitchen counter to be a little bit lower, or needs special handles on the door so they can open the door, go through with their chair, and then close it without having to reach back. And, there's a special handle for people in wheelchairs to open and close doors.
Then we had to go to the City Planning Commission, and they've taken a long time because they have a new plan they're using. They call it planned unit development.
So we had to go and present it to both the Planning Commission and the City Council.
First of all, it was nice because the City Council just seemed to get what we were doing.
There were 2 other groups that also wanted to purchase this property, and that meant additional presentations to the City Council trying to sell them on our concept. But Bill Godfrey and his team were amazing.
They just aired a segment on NPR National about Maple Oaks. It was on NPR National News, and we've had phone calls from California, Colorado, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. This is what's called a site plan. This was our original site plan. It's actually changed. Now we have the second condominium building is going to go here. These are all the townhomes around the cul-de-sac. And then here's the first condominium building, and the second condominium building will go right here.
So it is positioned in the perfect place.
And I had always liked that piece of property right across the street from the library.
It is walkable to Liberty Club. They can walk to Special Olympics practices because those are held right here in their area.
You can actually get all the way downtown without going on a street.
They can walk to a grocery store, a bowling alley, a health center, and all without crossing Michigan Ave.
Their moms and dads are living across the street, so that even though they'll have their own place, they're still pretty close to their mom and dad, which is really nice.
And it's nice to have, acceptance. All the people who are buying houses there kind of know from the get-go that these guys are going to be there, and they seem accepting of that.
Not one person has had an issue with it. Not one person has had an issue living next door to somebody with a disability, a developmental disability.
From the small age of preschoolers all the way up through the high school. And I really think that that's where it starts. It starts with children, teenagers, and young adults being accepting. And they are the ones that teach the older adults to be accepting.